I'm sure you guys know what a Neo Geo is, right? Well, if you don't, it was a cartridge-based arcade system board that was released in 1990. Part of the 4th generation of consoles, it was basically an arcade machine, but for the home market. Many games released for the Neo Geo were also in the arcade, so if you like to game there, chances are it could be brought home as well. The Neo Geo also had a CD variant that came out some years later to help with the cost, since the original was very expensive and was a niche product. Ultimately, I'm trying to say that owning any Neo Geo console is basically impossible for most people. Just look at the prices! The games are expensive too! How can you pay for this? Luckily for us, some of the best Neo Geo games did see a release on other platforms and compilations throughout the years. One console that did a good job here was the Sega Saturn. Yes, the console I love so much has done it again. The game I'll be looking into today is Real Bout Fatal Fury Special. This came out on all Neo Geo consoles at the time, and now it's here! The game was only released in Japan, and it uses the 1MB RAM expansion cartridge to assist in the port. Let's see if it was worth all the trouble. When we start the game, we get a few options to work with. Just the arcade and original mode, which I do not know what that means. The shocking thing is, everything is in English. Yes, everything. I find that astonishing considering that this was not released outside of Japan. Naturally, you guys know I use a Power Sega Saturn with the Action Replay cartridge to make this possible to play. Anyway, choosing a character is cool. You get this over-eager announcer telling you what to do, and I like the simple rocky music in the background. For the most part, I used Mai Shiranui, but there's a lot of different characters to choose from. I think there's over 18, maybe more, which is a good amount for a game like this. Real Bout Fatal Fury Special is a 2D fighting game. SNK love these types of games so much, they must have gotten fighting game syndrome or something to that effect. The game uses the Sega Saturn's lower 3 face buttons on the controller. One of the trigger buttons can be used to switch planes, as you can see here. Some attacks will force you onto a different plane, making the fights more dynamic. At first though, I was disappointed with this. Only using half of the Sega Saturn's face buttons felt like a waste, and considering what Capcom did with their fighting games on the system, this comes across as a bit lazy on the developer's part. But I had to remind myself that this is a Neo Geo port, and Neo Geo controllers don't have as many face buttons to use. Despite this, the game is fine to control. It feels great to play, and everything works as you'd expect. The face buttons control a weak punch, a weak kick, and a heavy attack of some kind. I say this because Fatal Fury has an interesting fighting system. Most games separate the punches or kicks. This one makes you experiment with different combinations to then execute stronger attacks. There's also a delay when you finish your attacks that leaves you open to a counterattack if you fight too aggressively. The artificial intelligence will take advantage of you, and oh, they are not pushovers either. As you'd expect by now, there's many moves you can pull off, and these special moves will be your best friend. A power meter will build up over time, and once it's usable, you can pull off special moves, and eventually, if you can get it to hyper mode, you can pull off your ultimate attacks. This is really cool to see in action, but for me, I could never get this to work when I wanted it to, which seems to be a very common problem for me. The bottom line though, the game is great fun. I love the fighting action, and although you do need to fight a bit differently here, learning the ropes is fairly straightforward, and when you start to get the hang of one character, the experience is pretty engrossing. I mean, yes, the game is hard, but SNK were known for challenging 2D fighting games since, after all, this was an arcade game first. Being this is a port on a system with less RAM than the Neo Geo, the Sega Saturn is doing a great job here. The game looks great with nice animations, good character and background detail, plus there's a charm about the graphics that make it feel more lively than it really is. The colours also pop too. The Saturn is great with its colour rendition and it works in this game's favour as well. The background animation helps add life to the scenes and I love how the characters get introduced as well.
Round 1.
Very dramatic, but hey, I love it that way.
Round 1.
The soundtrack though is the true star of the show. The CD music tracks are fantastic, from rock out songs to slower jazz-like songs or even ambient music There's a great variety of music types here and all of them are amazing to listen to. The firetiming is insanely more enjoyable because the music brings everything to life. The only downside is some stages have music that resets after every round and some don't, which makes no sense to me. Otherwise, this is a soundtrack to die for and I certainly recommend listening to it outside of the game. The sound quality of everything else is pretty good too. Punch and kick sound effects have great punch and sound painful. The bass helps deliver the drive and hitting someone is a lot of fun to do. There are quite a few different sounds for a lot of the attacks, which is nice to see. Most fighting games of the time only had a couple of different punch and sound effects at best. It's great to see SNK go a bit further in this department here. The character audio is just poor. It sounds rough and tinny, as if it was compressed or recorded in a tin can. It's bad. It can get irritating after a while, especially the female voices. This is the only real downside to the audio because otherwise there's not a lot to complain about here. Maybe the lack of modes could be another nitpick, but if you know what you are getting into, this game makes up for it tenfold. Trust me, this game is amazing. This is a great way to play one of the Neo Geo's finest fighting game series. Real Bout Fatal Fury Special was a major retooling of the series and to see a great port on the Saturn is a joy. The big reason to get this version is just how affordable it is. I only paid £22 for my copy. Insanely cheap for a Neo Geo game. There's other Neo Geo ports on the system that I will look into once I get my hands on them. It's the only way I can play Neo Geo games on real hardware, at least for now. Anyway, that was Real Bout Fatal Fury Special on the Sega Saturn. Let me know what you think of the game and until my next video, I will see you soon.